Aaron Dykes here for TrueStream Media. Now, Bilderberg just wrapped up its 2014 meeting in Copenhagen, Denmark, and we see more and more that technology is at the forefront of its agenda. Of course, it continues to have major influence over politics, economic and financial issues, and of course, military and foreign policy issues. But as technology takes a bigger role in our lives, as the flow of data becomes central, just remember that Bilderberg has been on the cutting edge of how data usage is defined. And that's definitely an area I've been on top of exposing. Going back to 2011 at the Bilderberg meeting in St. Moritz, Switzerland, I was reporting on all the invitees from the tech sector, from Silicon Valley. For years, since at least 2007, 2008, Bilderberg has had cyber warfare on its agenda in one form or another. But since 2011, and in particular since naming Peter Thiel self-dubbed PayPal Don, there have been a lot of invitees from the tech sector in Silicon Valley. Mark Zuckerberg and his sister Randy reportedly attended. Chris Hughes, the other co-founder of Facebook, was officially there. Sean Parker, the first president of Facebook. Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn has been there several times now and is there again in 2014. Jeff Bezos from Amazon and now owner of the Washington Post has been there several times, all since Peter Thiel was put on the steering committee of Bilderberg. In 2012, I put together a comprehensive report on the tech people that have been attending Bilderberg and what it means for our society, how important technology is becoming. These kinds of people showing up at the central power brokers meeting for the world. Last year in 2013, in its UK meeting, Bilderberg put even more emphasis on the emerging importance of technology through its agenda item, how big data is changing almost everything. Coincidentally, this coincided with the release of the Edward Snowden leaks about the NSA's mass surveillance program, and in particular its activities with PRISM, where almost all of the big telecom, internet, and communication companies, from Google to AT&T to Apple, shared huge quantities of data to meet NSA requests. This year at Bilderberg, we see the emphasis on technology continuing here on their official website, on their official press release for the 62nd annual Bilderberg conference. We see, does privacy exist? Now, these topics, their stated agenda, are of course euphemisms, but the way they're phrased speaks volumes. Does privacy exist a year after the official in-your-face revelations of mass surveillance to the NSA programs not could spy on any American, but do spy wholesale on all Americans and log the metadata, track the trends, use consumer data through the communications and internet use networks in particular, and lots of other data as well as how special is the relationship and intelligence sharing. We'll get into that too, but that not only deals with the NSA and its partner spy agencies in other countries, in particular GCHQ in the UK, but it also deals with the private firms that they contract with. And arguably one of the most significant invitees for this technology-emphasized agenda for Bilderberg for the second year in a row is Alexander Karp, the CEO and founder of Palantir Technologies. This is a company that contracts to the NSA and uses sophisticated algorithms and tracking databases to do the spying. And they're admittedly on the payroll of the CIA, the NSA, and other firms to do spy work for them. They were also funded in part through Peter Thiel, and they also had an injection of funds from In-Q-Tel, the official venture firm funding arm of the CIA. He was there last year to emphasize how big data will change almost everything, and this year to discuss does privacy exist, big inside joke, and the special relationship and intelligence sharing. And he, along with the other tech heads, are also there to discuss big shifts in technology and jobs. And arguably, who will pay for the demographics is also very closely tied to this big data paradigm of the emerging technology, because the demographics, the study of population statistics, is no longer just official head counts and the census and related official registered data that's logged by governments. It is integrated with all the consumer database information where there's huge gray areas of who's allowed to access it and where it gets shared, and there's really not anywhere near enough regulation of who can do the sharing. Demographics now includes all your online accounts, pretty much your entire digital footprint, where you have information set up and stored, and you could pretty much bank on the idea that the NSA and other related firms like Palantir have access to any and all of it. Here's a wrap-up story on Bilderberg published in the London Guardian by Charlie Skelton, and along with leaders like Christine Lagarde of the IMF and Henry Kravis and his wife Josie Kravis, two huge billionaire power brokers, and John Elkann of Fiat, who looks ridiculous. You've also got Eric Schmidt and Alex Karp meeting together on EU privacy rights with Vivian Reding, quote, probably the most important privacy negotiator in Europe. And a lot of people in the EU are outraged. There's been calls to rein in this kind of surveillance and protect data more so. A lot of it's kind of a big joke, but here they are discussing it. And above them is Keith Alexander, who just stepped down only a couple months ago from the NSA. For almost a decade, Keith Alexander headed the National Security Agency, the NSA, who've been doing the spying. He just stepped down in the wake of the Edward Snowden revelations, which he actually announced shortly after Bilderberg. He's been attending Bilderberg more often than not since 2008. And he's been there consecutively the past several years. I've been talking about him and his role at Bilderberg as he meets with these big heads of technology. We also have John Sallers, the Chief of Secret Intelligence Service, better known as MI6 from Great Britain, in attendance at the 2014 Bilderberg meeting, as well as David Petraeus, the former head of the CIA, and before that U.S. CENTCOM, Central Command in the Middle East Zone, who is now at KKR Global Institute. KKR is the buyout leverage firm who is de facto headed by Henry Kravis, the billionaire who also attends Bilderberg with his wife, who engages in predatory buyouts using leveraged capital and often derivatives to take over companies. On top of these huge names from national security, and of course the entrepreneurship of the web and technology, we also see key figures from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where so many of the developments that become the technological future emerge. There's Susan Hockfield, the president emeritus, and there's also Andrew McAfee, the principal research scientist from MIT, in attendance at this year's Bilderberg meeting. And of course, there's Craig J. Mundy from Microsoft, who attends nearly every year. Bill Gates himself has attended on some years on behalf of the foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but he, of course, still has controlling shares of Microsoft. There's also a new figure named Clara Shih from Hearsay Social, yet another social media company that uses Facebook and Twitter to amplify the advertisements, promotions of corporations. They're part of an emerging agenda to openly use the internet surfing habits of consumers to offer them targeted ads, putting the use of data for spying and tracking technologies right in consumers' faces in a way that they can accept openly. Coinciding with Bilderberg's meeting in Copenhagen this year, there's an interesting survey put out by Accenture.com, who polled several thousand people in the United States and the UK on their privacy concerns. And they found that the vast majority, 80% of consumers in the UK and the US who were polled, believe that total privacy in the digital world is a thing of the past. Isn't that interesting how it directly reflects the Bilderberg topic, does privacy exist? Well, most people say no, and with good reason. But a full half of those surveyed said they would not object to having their buying behavior tracked if it would result in relevant offers from brands and suppliers, something that they're openly doing now through internet service providers. AT&T's Uverse are putting out very high-speed fiber internet connections and offering consumers a lower price if they accept targeted ads that admittedly, openly, in your face, use your internet surfing habits to suggest relevant ads to you. Google's been doing that for years through Gmail and some of their other services. Now they're streamlining it even more, and many consumers, while not believing that there's privacy and while believing there's not adequate safeguards in place, said they're fine with that. And that's just what the Bilderberg crew want. They want an open acceptance of big data, of the end of privacy, and of sharing your data. At the same time, there are the implications of the smart grid. Melissa Melton just wrote this article, The Internet of Things 2025, Your Life Controlled by the Smart Grid, based on a Pew Research report that was just released a week or two ahead of the Bilderberg conference, describing how a global, immersive, and visible ambient network computer environment built through the continued proliferation of smart sensors, cameras, software, databases, and massive data centers in the world-spanning information fabric will, in essence, dominate us by 2025, because all of our appliances, wearables that are being launched now and integrated and made trendy, sensor-equipped things, data on smartphones, and all kinds of other information are all being uploaded to the internet, not through users making deliberate choices to share things as on Facebook or what have you, but through your appliances where things like use of energy can be tracked, or location data. With surveillance being ubiquitous and everything quantified, it's going to be hard to escape from someone else's electronic eye, whether it's the NSA or a company. And that's the key, is that it's a private-public partnership. It's a fascist overlay upon your life. If it's not the government, secret agencies spying on you covertly, it's the information you're turning over semi-willingly to things like internet service providers and communications companies. The Internet of Things will thrive by 2025. The expert report through Pew Research Internet Project, where they tap the opinion of more than 1,800 experts and stakeholders. How about the statements of David Petraeus, who back in 2012, when he was still the CIA chief, said, "We're going to spy on you through your dishwasher," and essentially hailed the Internet of Things. Here he is in Wired magazine. He discusses openly the emergence of the Internet of Things and how great it's going to be, the particular effect it will have on the clandestine craft. And it says, quote, "Items of interest will be located, identified, monitored, and remotely controlled through technologies such as radio frequency identification, sensor networks, tiny embedded servers, and energy harvesters, all connected to the next generation internet." And further commented that this will change our notions of secrecy and of identity. In other words, our sense of privacy, not based anymore on that old Constitution and Bill of Rights. Instead, it's de facto that information about what you're doing will be shared with all these entities. This entire Internet of Things concept was put forward by IBM, who defined the Internet of Things several years ago. IBM has formed an Internet of Things consortium with other companies such as AT&T, Cisco, GE, Intel, and probably by now a few others, to introduce and promote the Internet of Things. And it's this corporate, private, and government overlay that creates a lot of conflicts of interest. As you can see on this chart, everyone at Bilderberg from the tech sector, everyone from Peter Thiel and all the different projects he's funding, to Eric Schmidt from Google, Craig J. Moondy at Microsoft, and all the other invitees involved in social media and so forth, have relationships with the intelligence community and with the government and other business interests that are not obvious and open to the public. Not only are they meeting in secret and saying what they say at these meetings throughout the year, but they have ongoing relationships that affect the way these companies affect our lives. It's very important. For one example of how this can go wrong, let's look at Marcus Aegeus, who's married into the Rothschild family, and he's been a longtime Bilderberg steering committee member. For years, he was known as the head of Barclays Bank and as the head of the British Bankers Association, who set the LIBOR rate. Well, he eventually had to step down because the LIBOR scandal was surrounding his company and him, and so he stepped away quietly, even though he would be the greatest person of interest in how those rates were manipulated and set. Instead, he quietly moved on to a new firm called PA Consulting, who specialize in technology, databases, and management, and have major UK government contracts. Marcus Aegeus became the head of the company a little over a year ago, And since then, PA Consulting has fallen into a new scandal after it uploaded all of the NHS patient data for the National Healthcare System in England to Google Maps. They uploaded all the user data on 27 different DVDs to a private entity whose servers are outside of the UK, resulting in a major breach of private and trusted and very sensitive personal data that people under the socialist healthcare system handed over to the government, only for it to be handed over to this contractor and to Google. Oh, but there is no privacy anymore, so I guess it's fine that a contracting firm tied to Bilderberg accidentally leaked an entire nation's healthcare data. There's also a major tie-in with the emerging agenda for smart cities, the smart grid, and what they're calling mega regions, all major agenda points being pushed by the Rockefeller Foundation, who are at the core of the Bilderberg Group. One of the agenda items this year is the economic recovery sustainable? And as we know, sustainable is a major buzz term for Agenda 21 and a new environmental-oriented structuring of society. So everything being built has to be energy efficient. This is being developed through those who are building the new smart cities, and it's the subject of a major future report. But we've got a book here called Century of the City, put out by the Rockefeller Foundation, showing all their different plans for putting this together. And one of the major players who meet regularly with the Rockefeller Foundation and who are involved in building sustainable cities is an attendee named Bruce Katz from the Brookings Institute, who specializes in metropolitan policy planning. And the way they're building smart cities is by using mass surveillance, big data, and the Internet of Things to monitor in real time all the appliances that are used, all the energy that's used, the cars, the locations, how people are living, and whether or not it's considered energy efficient, and whether or not they're reducing their carbon footprint. It's a major aspect of the coming surveillance society that they want us to all live under. But the point is, whatever Bilderberg's agenda is, whatever direction they're going, you can see how old-line bankers and foreign policy experts and military personnel and intelligence services are interconnected, intertwined deeply with these young, fast, rich billionaires who are involved in the tech sector, who have recognizable social media platforms and major companies. These people are critical to the way that the old power structure is implementing the new phase that is technology-based and is more intrusive and invasive than ever before in history. Signing off for TrueStream Media, I'm Aaron Dykes.